A new report from the International Energy Agency finds that the cheapest energy source is solar and onshore wind. Onshore wind turbine prices in 2017 were about $0.06 per kWh, with some schemes running as low as $0.04 per kWh. Solar photovoltaic (PV) panels cost $0.10 per kWh. Fossil fuel electricity costs anywhere from $0.05 to $0.17 per kWh. The IEA says that solar and wind electricity will be cheaper than fossil fuels in a few years. In the past, coal was the cheapest form of energy, but with recent advances in technology, solar and wind are now cheaper than coal, gas, and geothermal. In fact, solar and wind have become the cheapest forms of energy. By 2020, these two energy sources will supply half of the world's electricity. With cheap renewable energy and affordable batteries, these sources are set to take over the power industry. This shift to greener power will help protect the environment and improve our health. While solar and wind power are the cheapest forms of energy today, the costs of coal and other fossil fuels are becoming expensive again. But in the future, solar and wind energy will become the cheapest forms of energy in most countries. And by then, the cost of electricity produced from renewable energy will be lower than coal and natural gas combined. That will help curb the carbon emissions that are so detrimental to our environment. Solar and wind power are also the cheapest forms of energy. In most countries, they're cheaper than coal or geothermal. By 2050, these two sources of electricity will generate 50% of all the world's electricity. With these developments, they're set to take over the power industry. In the meantime, we're seeing a shift towards clean, renewable energy. As long as they stay cheap, they'll be the cheapest form of energy for many years to come. It is no longer true that coal or gas power plants are the cheapest forms of energy. In fact, solar and wind power have dropped in price by 97% over the last decade. While gas and coal are still the cheapest sources of energy, these two sources are now the cheapest forms of energy for utilities, and solar and wind power are growing more competitive. The cheapest form of energy isn't coal and gas. The two technologies have the same disadvantages. Both technologies have high capital costs and CO2 emissions, and both types are expensive to develop. Fortunately, these technologies are gaining momentum and will soon become the cheapest sources of energy in the US in just 5 years. They're not cheap, but they're definitely cheaper than coal. For many people, gas and coal are the cheapest forms of energy. However, solar and wind power have been steadily reducing in price over the last decade. Compared to coal and gas, they are cheaper than solar and geothermal. In fact, some people believe that coal and gas are the cheapest forms of energy. The price of wind and solar has dropped by 97% in the last decade. When you compare the cost of renewable energy to fossil fuels, solar and wind power are the most expensive sources of energy. The cost of solar and wind power are the cheapest forms of energy in the world, but coal and gas are still the most expensive. In the US, they are cheaper than coal and gas. This makes wind and solar power the cheapest form of energy available. While wind and solar power are the cheapest forms of energy, fossil fuels still cost more. While they are cheaper, fossil fuels require mining. Adding coal to an electric power plant costs approximately 40 times more than solar and wind power. As the cost of renewable energy increases, the cost of these fossil fuels becomes increasingly more expensive. Fortunately, the cost of renewable energy continues to fall, making it the cheapest form of energy. Thank you for your time with this post. Please share this post with your friends, and we'd love to hear that you'll be here next time.